Hi everyone, my name is Leo Tsuka and I'll be presenting on environmental politics. So it seems rather intuitive, but environmental politics is the intersection of politics and environmental issues. So this focuses on policymaking on the local, state, national, and international levels, to further promote the health of our planet and the species who live on it, including us humans. So I've broken this presentation into 4 parts to make the organization a little easier, with part 1 being focused on the key players in environmental politics. The first key player, though it's not really a physical object, is policymaking. Policymaking is a course or principle of action adopted or proposed by the government, by a government, party, business, or individual. So, for example, environmental policy would be an action taken by the government or another institution concerning environmental health. Interest groups are another one of the players that push policy making. So they bring attention to concerns that the environmental experts have, especially because many of them house their own experts in the field. The Worldwide Fund for Nature is an international organization that focuses on wilderness preservation, so both nature and animals, as well as the human impact on the environment. And another interest group, the Sierra Club, is a more national one. It's in the U.S. and it's one of the largest environmental organizations in the United States, and it's founded by John Muir, and the club helps organize protests and advocates for environmental preservation. Another key player are government agencies. So the difference between a government agency and an interest group is that government agencies are created by the government, whereas interest groups are formed by people who are interested in pushing the topic, bringing more attention to the topic. A significant government agency that I'm sure we all know of is the EPA, or the Environmental Protection Agency, and they're in charge of enforcing the laws that are related to the environment that are passed by the federal government, and there are many state equivalencies of this as well, which enforce the laws that are passed by states. The branches of the federal government actually have a lot to do with environmental policy, in particular the executive and legislative branches. So the legislative branch introduces legislation and passes it, and the executive branch enforces said legislation by assigning certain teams and organizations or creating new institutions or organizations, such as the EPA, like we talked about in the previous slide. The conflict between environmental stability and capitalism is going to be the focus for part 2 of the presentation. Capitalism is the current system of economic activity in the U.S., and it's an economic and political system in which a country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit rather than the state or the government controlling it and regulating it. Capitalism encourages innovation because of its for-profit model, which allows society to progress and move forward because of the inventions that people come up with. But it also promotes efficiency in a streamlined process, as emphasized by the scientific management studied by Ford when they were building Model Ts. So Ford really wanted to make sure that he could create the maximum number of Model T cars as he could at the lowest price, so that he could sell the most and make a larger profit. And environmental sustainability is the maintenance of the factors and practices that contribute to the quality of environment on a long-term basis. So we learned about the 2 major theories concerning environmental sustainability in class, with conservation and preservation. And these theories clash with the traits of capitalism, which brings us to a conflict of interests. So this conflict is rooted in the debate of efficiency versus environment, as we discussed very early on in this class. Because efficiency is such a crucial part in creating a larger profit. Like, think about the growth of interchangeable parts and factories in the Industrial Revolution. So the negative externalities of such actions, of making efficiency such a high priority, are left out of the equation, and they're not considered because people want to make a larger profit. So now we move on to the current policy issues. On an international level, climate change has been such a big topic in the recent years. The Paris Agreement was signed in 2016 under the Obama administration, and the central aims of this is directly cited by the UN website, is to strengthen the global response to the threat of climate change by creating a global temperature rise this century well below 2 degrees Celsius, above pre-industrial levels, and to limit the increase even further to 1.5 degrees Celsius, because these actually will bring very, very harmful effects to our planet and to the people and species living here, which the UN report goes even further into as well. The UN study, which I just talked about, by the IPCC in 2018 warned us that there are 12 years left, only 12, to limit catastrophic effects of climate change. So ecosystems in particular are in danger as the temperature of the earth continues to rise, particularly the loss of coral reefs and other ecosystems that are home to an incredible number of species. And this could lead to food scarcity and deaths relating to water and heat, especially as the world's population seems to be barreling faster and faster towards 10 billion, which is such a large number of people. Climate change is also a big issue for us domestically as well, but in a different sense. So the Trump administration brought to light a rather conservative view on climate change in the United States, which questions whether or not climate change is actually real or not. And this is the question that the media has chosen to focus on and debate on air as well, which actually suggests that climate change could possibly not be real to the audience. It suggests that possibility, despite the very thorough scientific evidence that shows that there is. And then another domestic issue for us is oil. Trump has a rather laissez-faire approach on the economy, preferring to reduce regulations, which typically allows companies to increase their profit. And there are pipelines being created throughout the United States, as we talked about one of them last week. And despite these dangers of these pipelines leaking, they are still being created, and they could create environmental catastrophes as well. Oops, I skipped a slide. Nope. Okay, go back. Okay. So our state and local politics focus greatly on water. Water politics has taken over California politics, especially due to the scarcity of the water. And though California is technically out of a drought, there's been constant debate about who can use how much of this resource. So fishermen versus farmers versus projects that need water, all of them have been debating the use of water so much in the recent years. In my hometown of Saratoga, so this is getting very local, there have been several hikes in water rates due to this, due to the water politics, and our city council has tried very, very hard to fight it off, sometimes successfully and other times unsuccessfully. Whoops, I went back a slide, sorry. So I don't mean to put a dark future in environmental politics, or to paint a dark future, I guess, but I do want to urge you to get involved. I keep going back in slides, I'm sorry. So, a way to get involved in international environmental politics and policy is to really participate in those interest groups. Like, there are so many environmental interest groups out there. I've talked about some of them, like the Worldwide Fund for Nature and the Sierra Club, which is, I guess that one's domestic. But they have so many volunteer opportunities and ways for you to get involved. Domestically, you always could get involved in interest groups, but more specifically, participating in our democracy is such an important thing because, well, participation in elections and ways that we can get involved have actually been decreasing recently, and making sure that you're educated on the recent news and getting out there and voting when election season comes is super, super important. And locally, water conservation, so making sure that you're not wasting water, turning off that faucet when you're brushing your teeth, something like that. Those things definitely do help. Anyways, thank you so much for listening, and if you have any questions, you can just email me. My email is listed down there. All right, guys. Hope you guys learned something. Thank you.